I served in the Mossad for 28 years, and in the last 3 years I start building exhibitions about spy stories. The first and famous exhibit was about Operation Finale, the capture and trial of Avner Hoffmann, and the second exhibit was the Entebbe raid, the famous story from 1976. A hijacked plane to Uganda with 256 passengers, and maybe one of the biggest military operation ever, commando operation, with a huge success. And when I build the exhibit, I also focus on the spy stories behind it, the Mossad role in the operation. And after a few years, the Yitzhak Rabin's daughter, Dalia Rabin, came to the Mossad headquarters. She saw the exhibit and asked the head of Mossad if she can have this exhibit in Rabin Center. We all remember Yitzhak Rabin. He was the Prime Minister of Israel. And the head of Mossad agreed, and I start working with them, with the Rabin Center. And exactly like the Eichmann exhibit, I start sending messages all over, publish that I'm going to make exhibit and I'm looking for witnesses, hostages, soldiers, documents, whatever. And one day I met Sarah Davidson. Sarah Davidson flied together with the family, with her husband and 2 kids, to a bar mitzvah trip to the state. And during the week in Uganda, she wrote in a notebook her memories, and it became a famous book, also in English. And I asked her to have the original notebook to put it in the exhibit, because I believe that if you have original artifacts, it's always interesting, and they got energy. And after a few months, I met also Benny Davidson, that he was actually the reason because why all the Davidsons fly to the state, because it was his bar mitzvah. And we came for the first time to give a lecture in Israel or in the state or outside Israel. It was the first time in Philadelphia last year. And we came to the same place that Yoni Netanyahu, the head of the commando unit, grew up in this area. And we gave several lectures about the Entebbe raid. And we decided when on the way home, Benny and me decided that we can start do it almost every month or every week in other place. And we start traveling around the world, Europe, States, from Chicago to Miami, from London to Montenegro, in the synagogues, in Jewish schools, and also for ADL and other organizations. And it became a big success.
So to go back to the Operation Thunderbolt, it was about 100 IDF soldiers
More than
that went
220 soldiers.
220 soldiers that
Yes.
went actually.
Yes, and
So
6 planes.
On six planes. We got all the facts wrong, and the Mossad was important because your agents contributed in 2 different moments. Right, the first was to take picture of the Ugandan airport and understand where the old terminal was, where the hostages were held, and the other action that your agents took the Mossad agents took, was to meet with the hostages that were freed in Paris.
Yes, of course.
So can you tell me a little bit, as a conversation, the relationship of the Mossad, the contribution of the Mossad specifically to the work of the Israeli defense?
Since the plane landed in Uganda, 4,000 kilometers from Israel, everything outside Israel is the Mossad. And the Mossad agents came to Paris and start questioning most of the foreign passengers that we list. They came with the 2 different flights from Uganda to Paris.
So Mossad agents met the hostages.
So the terrorists decided on Tuesday to separate between the Jews and non-Jews and the Israelis and non-Israelis. And they made a huge mistake, because when the foreign passengers, hostages, came to Paris, they questioned by the Mossad. And the Mossad asked them about all the small details. How many terrorists, what kind of weapons. And with this inside information, the commando unit could, in 36 seconds, finish the operation, kill all the terrorists, all the soldiers around, and release all the hostages. Unfortunately, 2 of the hostages shot from our friendly fire. 1 hostage shot by the Arab terrorist, and Yoni Netanyahu died there. He got a bullet from the tower. So it was a huge success, and 41 years later, we are still talking about it. And it was important to show that if the terrorists make a selection, that part of the people there are Holocaust survivors, but in this way, in this time, we got the IDF and the Israeli government, and they came and they released them.
Can you also talk about the photographs that were taken by Mossad agents in preparation of raid?
One day before the operation, the Mossad sent an agent. He was really like James Bond, and he also was a pilot, and he hired a small plane in Nairobi. He fly to Uganda, and he made, with a Leica camera, more than 100 aerial photos of all the area. And these photos sent by El Al plane in the same day to Israel. The special intelligence unit in the IDF developed all the pictures and made 2 big envelopes. One, they sent it directly to the Prime Minister, and the other, they sent it to the planes and shared the pictures with all the commando soldiers. When Yitzhak Rabin, the Prime Minister, together with the head of Mossad, saw the pictures, they knew that there is no missiles, there's no anti-aircraft missiles in the area. The area is clean, and they can approve the operation, and the Prime Minister approved the operation only because of these pictures. The soldiers share between them, the commando soldiers share between them the pictures, and they could see exactly how the terminal looks from above, and they saw 2 roofs above the doors that they need to enter through. So that's why they could save a lot of time, because they ran directly to the roof. They saw the roof and ran directly, and less than exactly 37 seconds, all the terrorists killed, and they start taking the hostages with the cars. They came with few cars, and with or by walking, they walked directly to the Hercules that took off and fly directly to Israel.
We also know that Idi Amin was president of Uganda, was actually sort of on the side of the terrorists. So was that information available to IDF and the Mossad?
Idi Amin, 4 years before, on 72, cut the diplomatic relationship because Golda Meir, the prime minister, refused to give him plans to his air force. So he became closer to PLO and to Libya, and he became partner with our enemies. So that's why he took part in this terror attack, and he tried to put himself as a negotiator. He tried to say that they just landed here, I will be the negotiator, you should release 53, what they call a freedom fighter. How was your flight?
Long. And the trains.
As I told you, the captain of El Al, my captain in the plane that I came,
Right.
Erez Alivni.
The son.
And you know Amnon Alivni.
Naturally.
And he sent this to me. This is a letter that his father.
This is Amnon.
Yes, this is Amnon. And this is a letter that Amnon wrote to the Michel Bakos, the captain.
Handwriting.
Yes.
The same day.
July
4th.
Above Sinai.
Above Sinai.
Sinai. Okay.
When the Phantoms were already escorting him back to Israel.
By the way, did you bring your computer?
Yes.
Great. So I want to add this. What do you think? Not today, but
for tomorrow.
Yeah. But
Today.
it's good.
It's great stuff. Wow.
Yes.
That's a piece of history.
Yes, we can use the Hebrew for the Hebrew version, and also we can use it
This is great.
for the.
I'd love to meet Erez. When we come back to Israel, Saturday evening.
Yeah, I'm gonna meet
I'd love to
him. Yeah, we're gonna meet him.
I think Amnon's wife is still alive.
Okay.
Erez's mother.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, you told me that your father was with Amnon Alivni together.
Yeah, the same squadron.
Yeah.
He was the first to meet us when we
You
boarded
remember-
the Hercules.
You
On the tarmac in Uganda.
Yes.
Before we took off from Entebbe,
yes.
he went down from the cockpit and said hello to my father and
Yeah.
my mother.
I
That
see.
was the first regards from home after a
Yeah.
week.
So the reason why I like it, the two of you together, is because I'm sure that Benny had a perception of what was going on, and you have so many details. So if you can integrate that, and the detail is, the picture that you show me.
Yeah, but he already saw everything. I mean, this is the new one.
Okay.
This is
a new one.
is a real new piece of evidence that is actually very moving because Amnon was the captain of the 4th C-130, the last to land and the first to take off. He came empty to Uganda, or mostly empty, and returned full with all 105 of us.
Also with Yoni Netanyahu.
And Yoni's body and the other hostages that were killed there and the injured one. So, so he was the first one to take us out of there, and as I said, he was in the Israeli Air Force with my father, same age, same squadron. So. Think about the coincidence of we're stuck in Entebbe as hostages and the captain of our C-130 that takes us back home is a friend of my father from the squadron from 20 years before that when they served together in the Israeli Air Force. So,
By the way,
God works in mysterious ways. And in Shabbat.
Did you know that he was also one of the pilots to bring the Ethiopian Jews to Israel?
In the Moshe operation?
In one of them, yes.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yes.
I wasn't aware of that.
And of course, he
That makes
became
sense.
yeah.
And his son is follow his steps by becoming a captain in El Al.
I think I would start with what you were just discussing with Avner, that your father was a navigator for the Israeli Air Force.
Yes.
And so...
He was in reserves in 1976. He wasn't, in active duty. But yes, he was an active Israeli Air Force navigator, combat navigator.
And
But you wouldn't recognize the planes that he flew back then. Mosquito. It was a bomber, fighter bomber, and later on he flew a Skyhawk.
Oh.
This one you should maybe. Those are the days of the Mirage and the Oregon and the Vautour. Is ancient history of the Israeli Air Force.
I tried to be prepared for this meeting, and so I read several things, and as we know, not everything is accurate. But I found it very touching the story of him, of your father, deciding to eliminate his ID that would prove that he was a
His
navigator
Air
of the air.
Force entry base ID. Yes. It was like probably a couple of minutes after the after we were taken hostage, after the turmoil in the airplane, and we have a Hebrew saying for that. It's called balagan, complete mess, like everything breaks apart, and people are screaming and shouting and crying and becoming hysterical. Try to imagine you're packed in an airplane and everything is roaming around and people are running with guns and grenades in their hands. And I remember it, very, very clearly right at the outset, right when we understood that we're being hijacked because we saw the German terrorists walking back on the aisle with the French stewardess in front of her holding a gun to her head and a grenade in another hand, and the two Arabs running on the aisles behind us towards the front and shouting, that my father told us, move forward with your tushes, sit low. So if a gun is shooting a stray bullet, you won't get hit. Now, that's the first memory of my father taking control of an uncontrollable situation. The next moment came a few minutes after, when they demanded to collect all IDs. He opens his wallet and he takes a look at his Israeli Air Force entry base ID. He says, this should not be revealed. Thank God, 41 years ago, those pieces of evidence were made out of paper and carton and not of plastic like credit cards today. So he tore it to 4 pieces. I got a quarter. I was sitting next to him. I got a quarter. My mother got a quarter. He kept a quarter, and my brother got another quarter. And we continued to tear it apart, chew it, small little balls, and threw it in a soft drink can that was, the seat in front of us, and eliminating the evidence. And it was very clear that although there is a complete hysteria around us, my father is very calm, very self-contained, and my mother as well, although she is the hysterical part of our family. But she found pills, value pills, in her purse that her mother gave her before we took off from Tel Aviv, for whatever reason. And so that was my first and last value until today. I took value at the age of 13. So both of them acted very courageously and in control of a complete, messy, ugly, possible traumatic situation. So that's the first recollection. On one hand you become fearful, sad, in tears. Why me? I'm talking about it over the last year many, many, many times. And when I'm telling this story, I say, why not me? Why should it be you, or him, or him? I happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. So that's fate. But in parallel to that fear, I looked at my parents and felt the confidence that, okay, I'm with them and with my older brother, and we'll be good.
And that was a trip that was a present for your bar mitzvah. So, and that's the signal that you entered into adulthood, right? That must have been I cannot imagine what that means to a young man, that he has to go through his own father that needs to deny part of his identity, and your parents was trying to protect you, so not let you be totally aware of the real danger of the situation.
Well, I was 13 and I fully understood the magnitude of the situation. Nobody tried to hide it or tell me it's okay, it will pass in a few minutes. If you know our family, and hopefully you'll come visit us in Israel, so you'll meet my parents. We are a strong family. My father, my mother, their parents, they've sustained several difficulties in life. So nobody was trying to cover up. Pardon my French, but shit happens. Now let's deal with it. So that's what happened back then. And yes, it was my bar mitzvah gift, and I said, why? First time I'm leaving Israel. First time my older brother, Ron, is leaving Israel. That was a gift for his joining the military the following year. So it was a combined gift. And we were very thrilled and excited about going outside, first time on an airplane, first time out of Israel. For Ron and myself, my parents flew back and forth each summer. And we stayed with the grandparents. But for both of us, it was the first time. And all of a sudden, this first time gift was trashed and thrown away. Now, you're mentioning, 13 bar mitzvah. Each religion, each society has its own ceremonies of adulthood for boys and girls, and it reminds me a sentence that everybody asked me, weren't you traumatized at Entebbe? Which is a natural question, and Avner knows me for the last few years, and for over the last 41 years I've never used trauma as my experience from Entebbe. People were traumatized there. People got treatment afterwards. Some of them, 41 years later, still are having treatments and nightmares and all kinds of issues. Thankfully enough, and if you'll stay to hear the story later today, you'll appreciate and understand. But one sentence I do use: I went out as a boy and came back as an adult. So to some extent, this week in Entebbe accelerated my adulthood tremendously. So a boy went, and after a week, an adult came. But still, I did some childish stuff later on, so I didn't lose all of my childhood due to that experience. But that was a strong experience, yes.
So it was an entire week that you was there, and Avner just told us...
Sunday morning that we took off from Ben Gurion, and we landed in Israel on Sunday, I think roughly, I don't know, around noontime, or somewhere to that extent. So yes, it's a full week.
And Avner just told me, I didn't know that your mom had a notebook that she was keeping and became a book.
Yes, my mother received from her mother, her Polish mother, my grandmother, 3 items when we said goodbye in Ben Gurion on Sunday morning when we took off for my bar mitzvah present, USA coast-to-coast trip. She got a khamsa. You know what a khamsa is? Khamsa in Arabic is 5. It's the hand, it's the palm of the hand. And it's something that you wear here for good luck. Okay? And she got Valium pills, and she got a notebook, an old notebook like we had as kids at school, an empty one. And my mother asked her, what is this notebook for? She said, well, each time you and Uzi, my father, are going abroad, you're sending postcards from wherever I'm showing that to the kids. Now you are with the kids, I'm not watching over them, so write your experiences, and when you come back, I'll read it. That notebook became her personal diary in Entebbe.
So, again, back to when you were hostage for that 1 week at the terminal. When finally the rescue came, how did you perceive that? I don't know exactly what happened, if you saw the famous white hats or, you know.
Actually, I didn't see anything. I was trying to get to sleep. I was lying on the floor. My father was reading a book. My mother was playing bridge with my brother and another couple, like most evenings over that week. And all of a sudden, we heard initial gunshots, which I translated into Coca-Cola glass bottles falling to the ground. I didn't appreciate and understood it for what it was. But again, as the same theme started in the moments of the hijack, my parents immediately took control of the completely uncontrollable situation, understood it for what it was, and grabbed me and my brother to the close corridor that was leading the way to the toilets. And it was a shielded barrier that could have blocked the line of fire that might have been coming from the outside. My parents didn't see anything yet. We were situated in the back of the terminal. The shots came from outside the tarmac. And by the time we reached that corridor, we found ourselves lying on the ground. I was lying on the ground facing down. My mother was lying over me with her small body. She's a very small person, my mother, covering me with her body. And roughly my brother and my father, the same position, like 1.5 meters away from us. And all of the hostages that were situated around us in the back of the terminal ran and flew there to that hiding place. And then all hell broke loose. A complete war zone. Gunshots, grenades, RPGs, submachine guns, machine guns, missiles, whatever, like in a movie. But that was not a movie. And I was lying on the ground facing down and murmuring to myself. And my mother was, with all these gunshots around that were in the terminal and outside of the terminal, because they basically took control of all of the airport. So they were running around and taking control and fighting the terrorists and the Ugandan soldiers that were. So I was murmuring to the ground. My mother was, listening and Danny, what are you saying? What does a Jew say under these conditions? Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael is a very known prayer in Israel. In the Bible, it says Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Almighty God, our one and only Lord. And I continued and invented, God, please save us, I don't want to die. Things like that, and repeatedly. And all of a sudden, somebody yelled that, hey, there are Israeli soldiers here. And my mother looked up and saw Amir Ofer with the white cap and said, 40 years later, when she met him, 40 years later, to meet him, she said, you were like an angel descending from the sky. And that's the truth.
This soldier with a white hat being like an angel, but you know that somebody had died to save you, right? And today I was talking with the rabbi and we were talking about the Talmud, and there is this sentence that says, he who saved one life saved the world. And you was saved, but that's this one guy who died there. And I'm sure that it's still a symbol today, and I'm sure that it carries with you, right?
You're talking about Yoni. Well, up until last year, I had issues with Yoni's death. I read everything about him. I talked to whomever I could when we came back, and Yoni was a very soft spot for me. I felt that, he died because of me. I felt responsible. And last year, thanks to what Avner and I did here last year, actually at the same synagogue that we're going to talk in a few hours here, it all of a sudden dawned on me, the understanding. It's probably the setting, the place, the talking about Yoni, the Liberty Bell, the Philadelphia, everything, was messing in my head, and I needed to step up and talk in front of hundreds of people And finally understood. Yoni died for us, not because of us. That was his job. That was his duty. That was his choice. And instead of feeling shame and responsible, I felt proud for him, for the other guys. You know, not only Yoni died there, 3 other hostages died in the event. Another one died in the hospital by Idi Amin's hooligans. So 4 people lost their lives. Another one became paraplegic ever since, Sorin Hershko. And you know, Yoni is very famous because he was spearheading the commando unit of Israel, and he's a hero by all means. But what happened for me last year was, to some extent, releasing this obligation and this shame and this responsibility, and transforming it into being proud about his leadership, about his and his friends, Amir and Amos and Amnon and the rest of the guys whom I met last year, all of them, who I'm very proud of. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking just about Yoni's heroism. I'm talking about the IDF and the government and the leadership and the need to fight terror. And you know, although this event happened 41 years ago, it is still relevant. It is still relevant. Terror is here each and every day. You know, we're giving talks each week someplace else, and the relativeness of terror attacks and people being under terror is regretful still today, and I have to admit will remain because it serves a purpose for other people.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.